Now, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Good last few days of March. Since last week, we have spring over here. I have the luxury of seeing cherry blossoms from where I'm sitting through the window. It's very pleasant. It's very pleasant. I will wish everyone a good spring and then a year of relief from a lot of the complicated situations we've had so far. Anyway, today's work is going to continue the initiative we started last week, trying to bring it to completion. As you can see, since last week, the work we did is now translated to PR with a couple of linked issues, with a summary of the work that was performed. And we even have a review from a coworker. So the task today is to read this review together, find out what needs to be done, and then we also need to rebase what has over what has happened in CockroachDB. We need to fix a couple of failing tests. And possibly, we are also going to add an end-to-end test with a working CockroachDB executable. If everything works fine, we will even be able to complete before the end of our allocated time, in which case I have another little bit of projects that we are going to be doing on stream. But I don't want to overpromise. I have done that in the past. It was a mistake to overpromise in the past. And so this time I will just stick it to, let's see how far we get with this. And if we have more time, we'll be creative and find something else. All right. So this PR here. So we have two things to do: process a review and fix the failing tests. I will choose to go through the failing tests first. That's going to help us in two ways. It's going to bring the code to a place where it's going to be higher quality anyway. And it's also going to remind ourselves of what's going on in the code so that we will be more able to process this review afterwards. All right, so let's take the branch name over here. Then go here, and then here, and then rebase this. Cool. Let's confirm briefly that this works. I might actually start my program to show the key presses. All right. So it seems to build. It builds every package 2 times. I don't know if people have noticed this. So it did build, and the binary is produced. So the complete build is complete. So now, if we know there are problems in the test, they are specific to the tests. So we see a lot of tests here that are failing. But before we get there, we are going to check the linting tests. Linting is about code quality, and if the code quality doesn't go, then nothing else can go. So we need to fix the linting tests first, and then we're going to fix the unit tests afterwards. Sometimes linting tests actually are exploring the correctness of the code. So a linting test might actually reveal an actual bug. So it's always valuable to go through that first. So let's do that here. Going to make this font slightly bigger. And we are going to go line 183, no, 183. And it says, oh, it's in the test file. All right. So even my linter in the text editor is telling me that I should rename this. All right, that was it. Next, time util. Forbidden use time util instead. All right, I can do this. Yep. Next one. Just brush that. We have a couple of issues here. Cool, cool, cool. Line 222. So UID is already a byte-like data type. So it says, I don't need this. I will accept this suggestion. Oh. Yep, here's the same. And then we are going to go to this other file and then look at all the errors. So 167. All right, so this is a case where we now have a linter that wasn't there before. I'm aware of this linter. So this linter is telling us, well, if you have an error here, you probably want to return it here. So it's probably an error that you are returning nil instead. So we are going to say no lint return error check. We discard the error to fall back to password authentication below. And then we're going to do the same here. Right? And then this one seems like a real bug, actually. A variable that gets shadowed. So this variable here says to shadow another one, which is on line 388. 388. Oh, 390. Ooh. Why does it say that I have a shadowing here? Oh, look at this. So this variable here shadows this one. Yes, I can believe that. So we have an error already. We have is valid. Username. That is already returning a user, so we cannot call it user. And then we're going to say var has session bool, and then turns this into an equal sign. And this way there is no overlap anymore. User declare but not used because I need to use it here. All right. Cool. Cool. So that takes care of these linting failures properly. We're also going to check if there are any issues with linting that are caused by our build process missing some declarations. It doesn't seem like it. Cool. Cool. All right, so we made changes to 2 files. And unfortunately, I now have 3 commits in this PR. So what are the commits? We have the isAdmin logic change that is necessary to avoid looking up the admin group membership. Then we have the main features that we worked on last week. And then we have another little benefit here, which is not related directly. If we look at the patch here, that means that we have certain things happening in different places. And so that means that when we are going to process our changes here and put them in the right commit, we need to add them to the right commits in the history. For this, I have a magic emac command. And so this fallback is for the last commit, in fact. This one I don't know yet. I will look at it in a second. But this one is for the main feature. So this one I know goes to the second commit. And then this one might be Either the second one or say the first one. Let's see, what file is that? Here. So it is this one, in fact. So second commit. Cool. So this way we process the lint failures and we can now jump to the review comments. Oh. No, first the test failures. So the lint failures are processed. Now we are going to look at the test failures. So we have a couple of tests that are failed. 14. So lint is we processed already. And then we are going to process those. Okay, so admin debug auth. Why is that one failure? All right. It's here, so what does it do? Unauthorized, authenticator, non-admin, an admin, and it fails. All right, so we are going to check and see why it fails. All right, so I'm really crossing fingers here that the failures we're observing in different tests are just due to some kind of typo or small mistake that is spilling over to multiple tests. The last thing I'm wishing is to have a situation where the tests are going to tell me that the entire approach we've taken so far is just misguided and should be completely abandoned. That would be very unfortunate. Let's see. Oh, that doesn't sound right. Expected status code 401 got 200. Yeah. That is not good. So where is this? In 47. So it didn't get status unauthorized. It got, oh, you're fine. You can just access that URL. No problem at all. So, in other words, our authentication may have become slightly too generous, which is definitely not what we wanted. What can I say about this? This is really unfortunate. Really unfortunate. It's a broke authentication somehow. How do we go about this? So my reasoning from this, we're first of all going to check in the server logs if something specific is happening. But what we will really need to see is the specific queries coming in to the server and then how they were processed. So we don't see any logging related to the connection being accepted. So we will need to see some logging here. Info F. Session cookie used as password. And the username. Do we get a username here? Yes, from here. User. Cool. All right, that's better. That is better. We will also probably want the test to give us a marker that indicates the progress of the initialization. Oh, it doesn't interleave. That's not great. All right. So this is the point at which the test has initialized. Okay. It looks like maybe our mechanism with the bypass here is kicking in. Is that possible? Verify session? No. So this one should really have a is valid true. So we have here a logging, but it's not being used. So it's the only place where the code is returning either an error or let's I mean, we're going to be a bit paranoid, hopefully. So there is no access to this through this function, so that doesn't change. But still, apparently, the authentication is too generous. So that's the thing that is slightly odd, and it's unclear what is happening here. So we're going to dig down through what happens in those connections a little bit. That is worth doing. So if there is a request to the debug URL, so it's going to flow to the authentication function here. verify session is called here, or here, is it here? Get session. Yeah, that seems right. Get session is serve HTTP. Here we go. All right, so we are going. So that's the one we want. We want the valid authentication cookies required, and that did not seem to happen. So we're going to add logging here. Cool. And we are going to see what it says. If the get session doesn't return an error, then of course we have an issue. All right, so the first one here fails. Name cookie not present. That's good. Second, succeeds. Authentic user no admin is admin is true. Oh, that's bad. Because that user is not an admin. So why does it have is admin true? That's not great. That is not great. That is the main problem we have here. All right. All right, all right, all right. So second bit is false, 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 except for here. And it has become true. So we're going to go to verify session. And then we go through this. And then we are going to add some logging. And this function is called verify session. And that's going to tell us probably that isAdmin has been found to be true for a non-admin user. Right? User isAdmin true. Yeah, that's not great. Can't be made to be true. That is invalid. So why is this user who is not an admin marked to be an admin? And that's probably because the function I wrote here is admin from context actually is not doing its job properly. Oh. Yes, that's exactly what it is. I made a mistake. I made a design mistake over here. isAdmin from context. Yeah, okay. Okay, I made a bug. That's exactly what the reviewer was saying as well in the review. So, thank you, the reviewer. And instead of looking at the test failure, I would have saved some time by going to the review first. I was a fool. I mean, I wasn't a fool. I was trying to actually avoid wasting the reviewer time by, first of all, checking the problems I was causing through the tests. I mean, nevertheless, there was a bug. So what the bug is really, is that this function here is meant to work only after the authentication has completed. And I have mistakenly used it as part of the authentication flow. And the reason for this is because I thought that this function has admin role. Well, I actually made a mistake, really. This function has admin role I thought, well, sorry, I did not think about it. Was originally, before I started working on this, was only called after authentication. And so putting this function inside this function was okay, as long as I was respecting the idea that this was only called after authentication, which was true until I made this mistake to call this function as part of the verify session thing that is part of authentication. That was invalid. So hasAdmin role is okay to use the things that can only be called after authentication, but I should not be calling it here. That's my problem. So we are going to fix this by explaining a little bit. HasAdmin role determines whether the user, the provided, has the admin role privilege. This function is able to pick up the state, the admin, the aesthetics. This function can only be called. What did I just do? After authentication has completed. All right. All right, and I'm going to write the same thing here. Note, this function is unsafe to call during the authentication handshake. Because at that time, we do not have the values inside the session metadata even, so session is not known to be admin or non-admin yet. Cool. All right. So let's see. Yes. Yes. Let's move this. All right. If we were to mirror the function just below, want to say that a failure to find the metadata in the incoming context is proof that this is a gRPC or internal SQL connection that is known to be authenticated as root already. Alas, this is not convenient. Restriction. We also want this admin from context to be usable. Oh, but that's not the thing. Oh, that is absolutely not the thing we want. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is going to be complicated. We will need more testing. We actually do need more testing about this. During authentication, that's what I wanted to write down. maybe I'm taking this from the wrong angle, because the idea to mirror this across user from context is odd, given that user from context, if I'm not mistaken, is only used from RPC contexts. Like, these are RPC endpoints, so they're definitely already authenticated and they are already under RPC or under whatever. But those functions here, they never call... Well, maybe they do, in fact. Yeah, okay, let's say what we wanted to say here. So let's skip this. Let's skip this. Yes, let's skip this. Is admin from context. Let's skip this, otherwise it's going to be complicated. This one here is a problematic one. This one is currently calling is admin from context as part of the authentication. So it's only safe to call after authentication has completed already, because of this call here. And that means that our lookup in this case needs to be put in a different function. Cool. It goes to SQL to determine whether the given user is an admin. This incurs a SQL and KV lookup to the system tables. This is safe to use during the authentication handshake. All right. Because it can shortcut the determination of the admin bit based on information populated during authentication. The fact that this limitation is a misdesign, there is sees a following issue, and there is an issue that has been filed, in fact, by a coworker a while ago. So let me search for it. I don't remember if it was me or someone else who checked for it. So let's search for it. Oh, it looks like my camera has decided to die. Would that be the case? Yeah, it looks like it. My camera has died. Let me try to restore its function. Well, start it. I don't know exactly why it died. It is in the charger. Let's see. It's both willing and able to. Give me a second. I'm going to try to restore the camera. Yeah, it hasn't really worked, has it? What can I do? My camera has disappeared, and I apologize. This is a technical difficulty that I don't know how to solve without restarting the stream, which will break the connection and break the video. So let's continue until the break. There will be a break as usual in a little while, and then during the break, I will make a stream interruption, and then we will resume with my face afterwards. So I was explaining. So we have an issue file somewhere, and that is this one. And that's here. And that means this limitation and patient can be oh, the sound is broken. So how does this look? Maybe better? I think the well, actually, I don't know exactly what happened. The sound is still not like before. That is pretty inconvenient. Let me try to address this briefly because I think I know what's going on here now. Okay. Oh. Okay. Okay. What about this? Well. Oh. Yeah, let's pretend it's okay now. Thank you for tolerating this little interruption. I think I understand what's going on. I have changed my USB port configuration yesterday. Oh, there's an echo now. Oh, interesting. Why would there be an echo? Life is complicated. Why would there be an echo? I have an idea about this. Thank you for tolerating. Okay. Oh. This is muted. It's muted. Microphone. Okay. Cool. Well, it looks like we're back on stream with better sound now. I still have very little understanding of what is going on. Well, we're not on stream. Now we're on stream. Off we go. Cool. This should work now. Thank you for dealing with helping me deal with this. It was a little bit of a technical challenge. We'll see. We want this one now to be linked in this comment, and now it should be better. Cool. And that means now we can come back to authentication, verify, and here we need to do lookup admin bit for user. And now if we run our test from earlier, we will see the problem we had disappear. Yes, it did disappear, which in turn means we can remove this additional logging, which would be otherwise quite verbose. And now we can go and try out the other tests that were failing that we were investigating earlier, namely test status log. Yep. Status, actually all status tests. Yep, that seems to be fine. And yeah, all right. So we are kind of comfortable that we fixed that bug, and we're happy about the fact that we have tests that check all this, that verifies that a session does not authenticate itself without actually requiring an authentication credential. So that one actually don't need, and this one is a comment, and then this comment here. And all these change go to the second commit in our series here. And then this one is for the last commit. And I think we are now ready to process our reviewers' comments. All right, so what does the reviewer have to say? Documentation. Search for the first on-disk store or search for the first non-in-memory store might be more clear. Yes, I would tend to agree. Descriptive. For the first on non-in-memory store. We go. Next. Would it make sense to pass back a small struct here? For just a SQL username and an isadmin? Because if this valid is false, there won't be anything in the payload, and the error has to be passed separately. I don't know the answer to this question. So I don't know the answer to the question. We have precedent for using multiple return values in other places in this code already, but I am not opposed to adding grouping structs where it makes sense. The error has to remain separate, however, and the content of the struct would would be undefined if it's valid is false. So we'd use a struct just to group a user and this admin question mark. Let me know what you think. Cool. Next one. I need to look into the multi-tenant stuff to see if that would impact any of these assumptions in a meaningful way. I'm assuming not. That is a correct understanding, and I will clarify this in the file, in the comment at the start of the file, because it's absolutely worth talking about. It's here. All right, so file-based authentication is an emergency authentication mechanism, blah, blah, blah. Yes. Note that this design assumes there is only one authentication realm for the entire HTTP server. This is obviously true in a single tenant cluster. In a multi-tenant cluster, however, we need to be careful about this. If a single HTTP server can accept connection on behalf of multiple tenants, this assumption would be broken. However, this situation in a cluster, however, was able to accept connections multiple tenants will be broken. Today, we preserve this assumption as follows. All right. On KV nodes, the HTTP server only accepts connections on behalf of the system tenant, which is incidentally the same authentication realm as all the KV operations. On SQL pods, there is currently no HTTP server requests. The plan currently envision for SQL pod processes is that they only serve requests for one tenant specified in startup flags. And if we were to add a HTTP server to them, it would also be restricted to that tenant. And now we have an explanation. Yes, your assumption is right. Added an explanation to clarify. Next one. Strings at fields. Yes, absolutely. I need to understand how this works. So, field splits the string around each instance of one or more consecutive white space characters as defined by Unicode is space between a slice of substrings. Yeah, I like that. Good call. Will this end up creating multiple events for the same auth rule if a user adds a session, reloads, adds a session, reloads again? Yes, it would. Let's now it says this call here causes a new event to be logged for a user every time the file is reloaded, even if the auth merge session does not change. At the time of this writing, reloads are only triggered manually, so for the sake of simplicity, we consider it acceptable to have repeated events. This choice must be revisited if the design evolves to call the reloading function periodically. Cool. Next one. Since the current max duration is hard-coded, it might be nice to return an error here. Someone to generate the tokens that we know will fail later on. Yes, that is a very nice remark. We're going to come back to this in a second because we probably want to add a test for this case. A test of the expiry. We want to see an error happen. There is no test for this yet. So I will come back to that in a minute. Then here, any reason not to use crypto rand here? There's no such reason, but can you explain what the added value would be? The main part of the secret is carried, the main entropy for this secret is carried by the id.uv4. Session IDs are not meant to be secret, very secret. We just expect them to not conflict. Oh, that's interesting actually. That's a good concern, by the way. We don't do session, so we have, okay, so that reminds me, that's a good point actually. Which reminds me, I need, we have some risk now here that the session ID here will conflict with one in system.web sessions. The UX result of this is that a user who legitimately logs in using a password and a web sessions cookie can find themselves unable to use that cookie because it doesn't a pre-registered emergency. Do we want to care about this? And I'm making a lot of mistakes. Let's see. There we go. Cool. Can use T for the second argument since we know it's a Boolean. Oh, I suppose we can. Sure. Thanks. Done. As the live stream today demonstrated, we have numerous unit tests that fail when we mistakenly return true here. The return happens to be okay, but only as long as this function is not called from the wrong place. To administrate. Cool. Yeah, so we're going to process this comment here, which is useful. And we need to have some XP. But it's also been in 1 hour since we started work on this stream, and as I usually do after 1 hour of work, it is time to take a break to be healthy, move the body a little bit and hydrate. So I'm going to do just that now, and we are going to resume again in a few minutes, hopefully before 1:45. So enjoy your break, be healthy, and we will see each other again in a few minutes. And we are back on stream. Thank you again for being here. We are going to commit the little bits of changes we made in response to the review, and then we're going to add this test about the expiry of the cookie that the reviewer has suggested we add. So let's commit that change here first, and then read a little bit, reason a little bit about what's going on here. So, since the current max duration is hard-coded, it might be nice to return an error. Someone trying to generate a token that we'll know will fail. Yes, that is very, very reasonable. Let's do this. And we are going to do a check. We're going to have a check here, the same as here. Cool. Errors is not defined, is it not? Surprising. And now we are going to test this. We are absolutely going to test this. Come on, here. So we're going to make it very, very long. So we're going to say 20 hours times 365 a year. Why is my screen jumping all over the place like this? This is completely unacceptable. I don't know exactly what's going on. Hi, large data bank. Thanks for visiting. All right. And now we're going to say require dot error. Like this, maybe? Would that work? But we don't want any error, we actually want a specific error. It does require have a assertion for a particular error. Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah, it looks like it. No, that's not at all that's not what it is doing actually. We want a specific error. We have a test util that is error versus. Okay. Test utils. Yep. Cool. All right. All right. I think we addressed all the reviewers' comments. We addressed the failing tests. And we're now going to push this to the review, cross our fingers that the unit as a CI will be okay with this. And then a bit later, we're going to come back to it and see what the CI will say, like what findings it will have. All right, so let's see. I'm going to briefly check if I don't have a follow-up meeting. No, I'm not in a hurry, so we can actually move on to another thing. And the other thing I would actually like to come back to is the projects that I was working on before. That is, namely, actually we could be looking into this now. That's too complicated for a stream. That is the question of the connect command. We had an issue. So this is a work that we started a while ago, which was automatic TLS auto negotiation between CockroachDB nodes. And so we ran into a couple of issues. No big deal, I think, but they do need some attention. And in particular, we have that one issue that was bothering us, this one-way connectivity problem. And so what we found on stream like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, is that if we were to follow a number of these steps here, we would encounter a connectivity problem with some error message. And so that is really something that I was thinking a lot about in the last 2 weeks, really a lot. What's going on here, the reason why I'm thinking about this is because we do have a unit test that uses this functionality, the certificates that are produced, and then establishes connections all over the place, and that test currently succeeds. So if the test is okay, that means the basic functionality is also okay. And then I would be surprised I am surprised to see the more complicated server failing. So that tells me either of two things is true, maybe both, in fact. Either the test that is already there is incomplete and it doesn't establish bidirectional connections. If that is the case, then it's possible that the functionality is not complete, the test is incomplete, and once we evolve the test, we will see the test fail for a similar reason to what I'm seeing here. I actually want to investigate this because if the test is incomplete, we make it complete and we observe the same problem, we will have achieved something that is pretty valuable, and that is a test that is failing with a very narrow environment. So it makes the investigation of what's going on much faster, much easier as well. So we're going to investigate the existing test to see what it does, and then verify that it establishes bidirectional connections. And if it doesn't, we're going to add that. Then, separately, assuming for a second, hypothetically, the test is complete, establishes bidirectional connections, we're going then to see how is the code in the test different than the code in a real server. I had hoped that the test would use the same code, but maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, that means that we can investigate the difference between them, and the difference itself might actually inform us as to the origin of the problem. And it might be the server code is incomplete or incorrect, and that the test code is correct, in which case that will give us a hint of a solution. So here's the investigation for today, looking at this issue. So in fact, I'm going to update the link in my terminal to add the issue number here as well. This way we have it at the bottom. The other one I'm still keeping around because in a little while we're going to come back to it and just look at the CI, and maybe there will be more work to do. But until now, we're working on this one. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at the test that is already there for this functionality and see what the test says. And then see for sure whether the test is establishing bidirectional connections. If it doesn't, we're going to add that and see what it says. So that's going to be the first step. And after it establishes two bidirectional connections and there are no problems, only then we're going to compare the code between the test and the remainder of the server code to see if there are differences. So here we are. Where is that test? The test is somewhere. There are two places it's going to be. It's probably going to be, there is no test here. It's going to be server init handshake test here. All right. So that's where we're going to investigate. So test init handshake doesn't say on the label yet, but it does a handshake, and then after the handshake completes, oh, it checks that the files are there, but doesn't use the files. Interesting. So that's the case where the token doesn't. Okay, well, there you go. Look at this. This test does a handshake, but doesn't actually use the facility afterwards. So I suppose that is where we are going to do some work. I also want to say, I must admit, I haven't had lunch. I haven't had breakfast yet. It's about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Well, actually, it's going to be 5 o'clock. I start to have my brain low on sugar. Maybe it's going to be valuable for me to actually grab something to put in my brain real quick. So just give me 2 minutes. I'm going to grab something, a snack or something like this. I'll be back. And we are back on stream. Cool. Sorry about this. I've had a very large excess of glucose this weekend, thanks to an unplanned abundance of scones, lemon curd, and other sweet things. And the result of that abundance is that since yesterday afternoon approximately, I'm not able to eat anything. It's just too much food in my body. But I think that by now the glucose level has lowered enough. So let's get back to this. We have a test here that has multiple phases. We're going to bring it here. And then we're going to say t.run shake. And this test now is going to be extended with a validation. All right. So what we're doing here is that we're saying the directories to which each node source will be written by the handshake just below. Okay. So what we're going to do here, we are going to start what are called RPC contexts. These are the components used by servers to establish connections between each other. And we have code that does this already. And so we are going to use that, hopefully, or create some functions that can be reused in both places. And add a lot of logging because I'm also expecting this part of the test to fail. Before we get there, we are going to briefly start by benchmarking, not benchmarking, but like ascertaining how much this test is taking. That will give us a little intuition about how much we're willing to yeah, it's not super fast. It's 3 seconds. It's okay. It's okay. We can deal with it. We can absolutely deal with it. Okay, so the idea being that if it was a super long test, we would then be a bit picky about how often we would run it. But 3 seconds is not too expensive. So next one here, though, is super expensive. Pooh. 20 seconds. My gosh. All right. All right. So let's look at the RPC context. The RPC context is a very ancient part of the code. one of the first few things that have been ever written for CockroachDB. So the code probably the standards of this code are different. Security context. Manager. Okay. What is this context here? It's an RPC context. Oh, I see. So I like this new test server thing. And then there are some knobs here. So it needs a tenant ID, new context, and needs a clock, cluster settings. Okay, so it's quite the enterprise to instantiate this code, I can see. Let's see if there is a simple test, maybe, I don't know. Test con health. Get local internal client for gRPC. Oh, I like this. Oh, that's okay. New test context. I like this. Context testing knobs. Okay, so I probably want to export some of this code. We'll see. Then we have an internal server. I like this. That will respond to requests. That is call. And that is a test server. Okay, and then we have an internal client adapter. Yes. Cool. And then this. All right. And then we have a heartbeat logic. I think heartbeat is nice. Test context, heartbeat, listen and serve our gRPC. So, I mean, that's really what we want here. We want a gRPC dial node. We want to experience this connection. I want code that I can reuse that is simpler than all this. Oh, that sounds promising. New test context as a client. And then gRPC, not a port. And then okay. Heartbeat health transports. That's complicated. We want another test. Offset measurement. Start heartbeat server. Test file offset measurement. Remote offset and healthy. gRPC keep alive failure in flight RPC. Oh, I like this much better. But it's still a heartbeat test. Still complicated. It was night ID mismatch. Listen and serve of gRPC. Oh, This is why I was confused this entire time. There are two functions in this file that I wasn't paying attention to. New test server and new test context. The test server is a server thing, and it starts up a gRPC server or an RPC server, and then we listen to the server, and then we connect to it with a client CTX. And that also needs some logic. My gosh, this is why it was so complicated. And then I need to dial the client with all this. Oh my gosh. Okay. Now I get it. And so for the test context, I will probably want to do a test around here. In the server package, this was the RPC package, but I'm here in the server package. And do I have a test in this package that does gRPC dial node? That would be ideal. It looks like we have something. Test gRPC authentication. That is so promising. Then we have connectivity test, which is also absolutely promising. Although that uses a test cluster. I don't like that. I don't want a test cluster. Okay, so gRPC authentication. We want that. And then test node gRPC response in status test. Okay, cool. All right, so we have something to work with. So the first one was in authentication test. Pardon? Oh, authentication test, I said. So, oh, it starts a server. I don't want to start a server. We see new gossip client and then gossip connection, and then we have all the services. Yeah, okay, well, gRPC dial context with transport credentials. Okay, so that's actually... That is okay. No, it's not okay. We actually need more than this. Okay, so it's completely not the test we need. Let's go to status test. That is better. That sounds much better. New RPC text context. Ooh, that is so promising. It wants a test server, so... Store soap, start server, and that is a client context. Okay, so it wants a test server. Why does it want a test server? So this one, TS, what is TS used for? Classes settings for the tracer. Oh. Okay. Okay. We can do this. We can do this. It doesn't really need a lot of data from a test server. You just need a couple of things: cluster settings, tracer, clock, and stopper, and the cluster ID. So we are going to extend the test server interface accordingly. Okay, RPC testing, RPC test is used by tests that want to set up a RPC client context. And here we need to have the things from status test. So we need to have cluster settings. Cluster settings. We need a clock. We need a stopper. And we need a cluster ID. Cool. It usually comes as beginning in this order. All right. And then we are going to say func ts test server. Oh, I don't even need this to be in this shared file. I can put it here. All right. Cool. Okay. That's a small letter. And then we are going to switch this here to not require a test server. No, that's settings. Cluster ID. Cool. Cool. That allows us to start a client without a test server. Does not allow us yet to start a server context with parameters. And so we need still to build this. And how do we do this? We have to go and investigate a little bit how the server package does a RPC context. How is the RPC server decided? That is RPC CTX ops, context options, ambient, stopper, RPC, heartbeat CB, get server TLS config, new gRPC server. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. Then starts the gRPC server. Start a server with an interceptor. Then it intercepts this. And new server does whatever it does. But that's what we need. Cool. So we want, this is a client context. Establish, create RPC context that can act as client for a RPC server inside a test server. Okay. For example, one inside the server. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to use the new gRPC server that is already in the server package to create a server. We're going to use the new RPC test context to create a client context. And then we're going to use a client to connect to the server with the same TLS parameters, with appropriate TLS parameters on both sides. And see if that connection succeeds. And if it does not succeed, we will establish from the test logs why it does not succeed. All right, so coming back to our test from earlier, what we know we will need is a client context created using this function we have here. Okay. So we have client CFG config, and then we have RPC client params, and that is a test server params for RPC clients. I would say RPC okay, cool. Then we have a client context, and using RPC client context, we can dial the server. And we are going to dial raw, I think. And it's going to be an invalidated dial. Cool. All right. Why does it say RPC server params for RPC client? It is there, right? I type it in here for RPC clients. Clients. Off we go with an S. All right. Client CFG is not valid. It wants the base.config. All right. I will believe that. What does it want from, say config, in fact? What does it use in the config? Config? Let's see. Oh my gosh, there's a lot. How much is used inside? So it wants insecure. Insecure is false. Then it's going to use make security context on the config. That means it's going to make a SSL source tier. So we need to have SSL source tier. Cool. What else do we need? Config.user. Okay. Okay. We can do that. Disable TLS, so insecure is not the case. Then we will have advertise address, and I don't know that we need this. This is going to be only for the server part of the code. So it might be that is going to be sufficient. We're going to check that sufficient by looking at the CLI package, because CLI package has a piece of code that does a RPC connection, and that one here just needs the right amount of code. Okay, so I'm going to get a connection. And then I need to connect. So I will need a context. All right. And after that, I will have a close. Okay. And then I can then use my client connection to perform a health request. I have connection, server PB, new admin client, server P health requests, and then all right. All right, so there is a health endpoint in our test server. So it's possible that the test server we're going to instantiate, which is not done yet, doesn't have a health endpoint. So we will need to check that in a second. Yep, I need to call my defer. Server PB. Why does it have confusion? It is there. Cool. That's security. All right. All right, all right, all right. And so that was the client part. And now we have a server part. For that one, we're going to go to the other file here. Cool. And then what is the RPC server context? So we're going to check the certificate addresses. Does that panic if it fails? Server context. So let's see where that is defined. RPC new context, okay. 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 We will get to that in a minute. Then what is this saying? Get certificate managers, and it will log stuff. Info, shout, info. Okay, so and then it panics. Okay, well, I can do this. I can do this. So it panics and it logs. Cool. Okay, well, I don't mind. I don't mind the shouting and the logging and things. All right. So there are a couple of other things that happened, and there is a heartbeat CB. Oh, callback, heartbeat callback. Okay, well, maybe that's what we need. And then remote clocks. Okay, so these are sanity checks on the server context config. This mirrors the checks in server.go. Oopsie. Okay. Okay. And then cool. Then we create the server. We don't do anything with it though afterwards, right? There is a server thing, but further than that, yeah, there's nothing special here going on. We'll come back to what the server does. So here we have context options, and then we will need a couple of things. I need an ambient CTX. Okay. Oh, that's different, actually. What is CFG? That's a server.config. Oh, I see. All right. We'll need settings. All right. So okay. Oh, now we have one. Okay. 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 Seems all right. No knobs. Okay. I don't know what this heartbeat CB is doing. We're going to figure that out. Oh, it's just a check that the heartbeat is okay. So the callbacks that the caller can set up. All right. Oh, this way we can actually check the connection is happening by even without making an RPC call, by just waiting for the heartbeat to happen. So we're going to say that here. Maybe we just need to set heartbeat CB and wait for that to be called. We'll see. All right. All right, so what we need to do next, here we will have create 3 RPC servers. We will then check that each of the RPC servers can connect to the 2 other servers. Then we will create 3 RPC clients using the client source in each of the source directory. We will check that each of the RPC clients can connect to all 3 servers. So in total, we'll have 3 plus 3, 6 different RPC contexts, 3 servers, 3 clients. And we're going to check all the ways. And we'll have the tests report the findings. So all this plumbing and things I was doing so far was for both sides, but we actually need to multiply this by 3 every time with a loop. And then the particulars of that loop will use the directories that are here. So let's instantiate them via an array. So we can programmatically access them below. Oops. And then we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this in a later stream because it's been 2 hours. We've worked for 2 hours on the one topic. It would be time to take another break. But I think that working on the same specific piece of code for too long is counterproductive. So this one here, I'm going to leave in the text editor. The only thing we're going to do before we close the stream is to come back to our PR here to see if the PR we were starting to work initially is making progress in CI. And if there are no errors we need to work on, then yeah, it seems to be green for now. So apparently the issues we fixed initially kind of okay now. So this thing here, this issue we're working on is like in work in progress. There is a test here that is remains to be completed. And that is going to be the topic for next week. We will complete this test, complete this connectivity test, and that will teach us how this code performs in a contained, very small scope environment. So thank you for watching. Thank you for accompanying this work today. Thank you for being here. And we will meet again next week. Have a good day and a good week.